dhe familjet e tyre. Dobar dan i dobrodošli na prezentaciju izveštaja Shvatanje faktora privlačenja i odvlačenja na Kosovu, izveštaj o prvobitnim intervjuima sa borcima, povratnicima i njihovim porodicama. I would kindly ask you to please turn off your mobile phones. Ju ljutem që t'i shkyshni telefonat mobil, molimo vas isključite vaše mobilne telefone. Please use channel 2 for English language translation. Përkthimi në gjuhën shqipe transmetohet në kanalin numër 1, prevod na srpskom jeziku prenosi se na kanalu broj 3. To welcome you to this important event, I invite Alessandra Rocasalvo, Deputy Resident Representative of United Nations Development Program in Kosovo, to take the floor. Ale, please.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm sorry for those who are standing. I wanted to greet first the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Mr. Haradinaj, the United States Ambassador, Mr. Delawi, KFOR, Minister Gashi, Minister Berisha, and Naim Reja, all the ambassadors that are here, diplomatic corps. I see many faces that I know from other events. Senior officials from the various ministries, media, friends of Kosovo, thank you for coming. I should say we quite underestimated the amount of people that would be interested in this topic on a November afternoon. But let me start by saying, I know what you're thinking. Another report. Nothing could be further from it. It's been since 2014, I think, that UNDP has been working to develop a deeper and more nuanced understanding of violent extremism. What we're aiming to do is to address two interlinked challenges. The rise of extremism on the one hand, and using a development approach, of course we are a development agency and peace-building approach, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, to come to terms with that we all live in very multicultural and diverse societies, not just in Kosovo, all over the world. And how do you bring these two things together where people believe in different things and have different ideologies and different aspirations in life? What UNDP is trying to do is to strengthen the understanding of vertical and horizontal cohesion in a society. Yeah? We're helping actors here in Kosovo and elsewhere in the world to reinforce their resilience to conflict and divisions in society. We're looking at the relationship between conflict prevention, economic opportunities. You know, in Kosovo our name is pretty much linked to this, on labor market programs, but also things like the rule of law and the human rights and inclusion generally of governance and civic processes. Needless to say, focusing on young people and women, not because it is a luxury, but it is a necessity in 2017 to include all pillars of society. Let's go a little closer to home. The research that we are presenting here today is the first credible, systematic and multilateral study based on primary interviews, which means that interviews with people who have been either convicted or are family members of those convicted, or in any other case have been traveling to Syria but were not convicted for a reason, emphasizing what all of us want to know most. Why did you travel? Why did you decide to leave a good life in Kosovo to go to Syria, to go to a war zone? And why did you come back? Yeah, what made you leave there and come back here? So, and what do they expect from their reintegration into society? How do they think rehabilitation can go? And now the findings of the report should be used for further strategic planning and programming. It's open and available to everybody, not just to UNDP. Every agency, every administration can look at it and decide on what they're planning on trying to do with this. This is an independent expert commissioned by UNDP, so we had 2 people who are really experts in their area. They're also going to come to Kosovo later in December. We are planning to do a brown bag with people who are more technical. The report contains direct quotes, as obviously these are direct quotes. This is things that people said. We don't put them there to fuel sensationalism. We're putting them there because this is what people have been thinking, and you all have a right to know. Yeah? This is not something that, it should just demonstrate the individual thinking process, not necessarily the buy-in of anyone, and if you read the things, you would possibly have a hard time buying in the first place. Okay, the individuals that were interviewed in this report did this out of free will. It was a self-selection. We asked everybody who was serving sentences in Kosovo prisons. Some people said yes and changed their mind. Some people said no, then changed their mind. Some people said yes and didn't change their mind. Some did, for instance, change their mind only after we spoke to family members. So you have everything. The number might sound very, very small, but it takes hours and days to arrange, and our gratitude obviously also goes to the Correctional Service for making this happen. If you're looking for statements on beheadings and cruelties, you won't find it. We didn't ask for it. What we asked people was like, how did you come to the event that you left Kosovo, and how did you decide to come back? Yeah? So what's been in the middle, we didn't ask for it, and when people started to talk about it, we stopped them. Because, again, the purpose was for people to share freely, to might repeat this in the future. It is not a law enforcement tool, so nothing that was gained from these interviews can be used against these people or pro in that matter. It's called life story methodology, and it's used quite frequently in these type of interviews. Obviously, as I mentioned, the relevant institutions were also there. They did not sit into the interviews, but they enabled us to access correctional services. And during the research, we learned many lessons learned. As you know, we do a lot of surveys here in Kosovo. We do a lot of surveys abroad, but this basically has taken us triple the time that any regular research would take. Partially, it's because of these administrative arrangements in place, because when you try to enter and exit correctional services, you need to do certain things. There need to be certain permits. Again, you get there, people change their minds, they didn't want to talk. You have to go back. This has taken an enormous amount of time, so also when you see that the last interview was done in April, it was not that we were sitting around and enjoying the summer in the meanwhile, but you need to transcribe interviews into English, you need to analyze them. Now for the Albanian version, we're not translating them back, we're taking the originals. So it's taken a long time. I can tell you already that what I'm not happy with is that we didn't manage to interview a lot of family members. This was exceedingly complicated. I could have not even dreamt about it in my wildest dreams that, I mean, you obviously don't just go there, yeah? So you first ask the prisoner, then they might talk to their family, you go back and forth. When you go there, they might not want to answer. We had cases where people were remarried. I mean, people, I'm saying it's 100% women, so the new family didn't allow it. You cannot interview children at all. So there's some sort of limitations, but this, I think, would have augmented the research quite heavily. Let me close by saying that here in Kosovo, we face the same problems as everybody else in the world, in Europe in particular. The return of foreign fighters is a fact. Yeah, people are coming back. Whether it's because the Islamic State is crumbling, maybe it's because they didn't have hot water, I really do not know, but this is a fact that people are coming back. And all societies must ask themselves, how do you reintegrate people who have done something that most societies would feel is totally against the societal structures. Here in Kosovo, it's also, in many other places, it's also against the law. It's a difficult challenge to administrations in the world and to law enforcement agencies, because at the end of the day, we do not know so much about these individuals. And obviously, after we've given the presentation, I hope we will know a little more about it. Let me close by saying that at the moment we have the report in English. There's a copy on my chair. I'm going to enlist the Prime Minister or the Ambassador to hold it up. We will upload this tomorrow in English on the website. From mid next week, you can also get printed copies. We are working on the Albanian and the Serbian translation, but we are translating ourselves, so it takes much more time than it would normally. And yeah, we wanted the translation to be top-notch, so please bear with us until we are able to make this happen. I'm going to close here and have two more announcements on events that are related to this research at the end of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ale. Kemi nderin dhe kënaqësinë që sot këtu me ne gjendet edhe shkëlqësia e ati, Kryeministri Ramush Haradinaj. Zotëri Kryeministër, fjala për ju.
Mirëdita, Dobaran, good afternoon. It is important to add to this good job being done that we need more of, I would say, a substantial work that not only we put light on reasons and cause of why people join activities, wars, or ideologies that are a threat not only for the others but for themselves and their families. So my speech will be in Albanian, as I believe Kosovars should hear it precisely, our thoughts and our beliefs on what is achieved today and what our goals are here in society. Pra është shumë me rëndësi që jemi bashkuar sot në rastin e publikimit të raportit që ka bërë UNDP, një raport i cili vërtet na ndihmon me kuptue edhe më direkt shkaqet, arsyet, rrethanat pse i bojnë të rritë e Kosovës, të rritë e treja, ose pse ka ndodhur që të rritë e Kosovës mi u bashkue lëvizjeve, luftrave, ideologjive, të cilat jo vetëm i rrezikojnë të tjerë, por i rrezikojnë ata vetë dhe familjet e tyre. Pra është tepër më rëndësishme kjo. Për këtë arsye, edhe unë dëshiroj që të falenderoj zonin Alessandra Rakasaro, pra UNDP-n, falenderit shumë. Njëkohësisht shpreh falenderim për prezencë edhe ambasadorit të Shtetit Bashkuar të Amerikës, zonin Delavie, shefit i UNDP-s, komandantit të korit, ambasadorëve tjerë të nderuar, ministrave, gjithë ju prezent. Mendoj se ajo që ka kalu Kosova në këto 20 vite, që ishte një hapje, pra hapje edhe në pluralizëm, hapje në liri, hapje në ide, pra një hapje në mundësi, një liri e mohumen, kalumen, i ka shërby Kosovës jo vetëm me identifiku vlerat e veta të mirëfillta, por edhe me definu vetën. Tani Kosova vërtet është e definuar si një vend atë i gjithëve që jetojnë në Kosovë, i shqiptarëve, si shumicë, si komuniteteve etnike, dhe njëkohësisht Kosova e ka definu vetën edhe si atë i vlerave me cilat ne mburemi, edhe i diversitetit, pra i diversitetit edhe fetar, edhe etnik e gjusor. Ideja se Islami është i rrezikum në Kosovë është ide false, pra është ide e shpikur, edhe është ide e eksportume, pra e ardhme në Kosovë, për atyre që kanë definuar networkin islamist si mënyrë me zbatu agjendat e tyre, që në agenda që kanë për qëllim, pra direkt rrezikimin e të tjerëve, dhe këte jo vetëm rendin shoqëror e institucionet, por rrezikimin e qytetarëve, atyre të pafajshëm dhe të fëmijët. Mendoj që në Kosovë tash gjithë ne kemi të qartë, pra që nuk është bë luftë për me zhvillu islamin, as me mbrojt islamin në Kosovë, as me rrite me kultivu, sepse islami, e feja islami, muslimanizmi në Kosovë, është tradicional, ka qenë i respektuar, s'është rrezikuar asnjëherë, ka bashkëtuar me fe të tjera, edhe me kishën katolike shqiptare, edhe me kishën ortodokse, edhe me tarikatet, edhe me gjitha ato besime tradicionale në vend, gjë që dëshmua dhe sot me votimin në part ligjit për lirit fetare në Parlamentin e Kosovës, pra thjesht se përhapja e ideologjisë fetare, përhapja e ideologjisë islame nuk është bën shërbim të fesë, nuk është bën për fen, nuk ka për qëllim fen, po është agenda ta quaj edhe një herë e rrezikshme, është rrezikon Kosovën, rrezikon njerëzit e Kosovës, edhe Kosova në drejt duhet me ditë me i thonë jo një projekt i tillë i cili e vendos Kosovën në hartën e gabuar. Edhe këtë e vërteton numri i trive tonë që kanë mbrije deri në luftat po e quaj ashtu absurde, luftat që rrezikojnë jetën e gjithëve edhe në projekte që janë rrezik për vendin tonë. Pra, kjo nuk është vetëm për faktin se në Kosovë shumica popullsisë, rasti konkret ne shqiptar kemi identitet dhe bashkëtojmë me besimet fetare pas një problem në kaluamën, por duhet ta kuptojmë se përpos rrezikimit identitetit tonë që bëhet si shqiptarë dhe si trashëgimtar besimeve fetare që i kemi brenda nesh, për unë isha në Korçë para 2 dite, vizitova katedralen pra shqiptare të kishës ortodokse shqiptare, dhe këta janë shqiptarë, pra ideja e plasimit të një islami radikal në Kosovë nuk bëhet për shkak të fesë, po është krejtësisht agende sponsorizuar në dvorkeve që janë armiqësore ndaj Kosovës. Edhe Kosova me plot drejt duhet të jetë e guximshme me i thonë jo këtyre agendave. Mendoj se këtë jo duhet t'ja themi të gjithë, familjet, institucionet e arsimit, institucionet e vendit, këtë jo duhet t'ja thonë besimtarët, pra ata që janë besimtarë, që besojnë në Zot, që besojnë në Kur'an, që besojnë në Bibël, që besojnë cilin do libër të shenjtë, por po ashtu në këtë jo duhet jemi të vendosur, edhe këtë jo do ta thoj edhe organet e rendit dhe të ligjit. Pra nuk muj me toleru në pakufi, edhe nuk muj me leju në pakufi që brenda nesh në popullin tonë, të trit tonë, ashtu si edhe e gjejmë në këtë raport të përhapën ideologji të rrezikshme që çojnë ka terrorizmi dhe që çojnë ka rrezikimi i jetës njerëzve tonë. Mendoj se jo të gjithë kanë qenë nivel detyrës në kaluamën, edhe mendoj se sot situata është ndrysh, e pse e them është ndrysh, mendoj se vetdia në Kosovë është ngrit. Pra sot kemi të bëjmë me një vetdije shumë më të ngritur në nivel të vendit, si të trit, pra si të familjet, si të besimtarët, si të bashkësitë fetare, mirë po është ende, po e them ashtu shqetësuese, një gjuhë propagandistike, në ashtë të caktume, e disa prej imamëve, ose e disa prej të ashtuqujturve imam, të cilët vazhdojnë me përhap ideologji të rrezikshme, që rrezikojnë jetën e njerëzve të pafajshëm, edhe që rrezikojnë pra me i bo pjesë të luftave terroriste të vendit tonë. Edhe kjo është e patolerueshme, s'bën me u toleru në Kosovë. Tani Kosova është atë vejt gjithë, edhe ne jemi të gatshëm me i riadbesu ata që kthehen, në bashkë ligjit, në bashkë obligimeve që kemi, edhe Kosova është aftësuar për të. Kosova që është atë vejt gjithë, po ashtu e merr përgjegjësinë me siguru jetën e secilit e secilës, edhe me siguru sigurinë publike në vend. Duhet falenderoj organet e rendit, e sigurisë publike, e partnerët e institucionet tona në ndërligj, për i punë vërtet dobishme që bojnë, që Kosova të jetë vend i sigurt, edhe ju ftoj që në këtë bashkëpunim, pra të jemi vërtet besnik sikurse edhe deri me tani. Unë kam shumë për me thanë, por ajo që duhet ju them është se nuk mundet kurkush me i mashtru në pakufi qytetarët e Kosovës me këto ideologji. Në Kosovë e kanë kuptu që këto janë ideologji të rrajshme, që kanë për qëllim rrezikimin e jetrave të njerëzve të pafajshëm dhe që janë armiqtë të Kosovës. Edhe mendoj se kur e lexojmë edhe këtë raport deri në fund, e kuptojmë se si është manipuluar pra me trit e vendit tonë edhe kuptojnë përgjithësinë që e kemi gjithë që të ndalim këtë manipulim. Ju falenderit.
Ju falenderit shkëlqësia juaj. Është nder për ne në UNDP që të vazhdojmë bashkëpunimin ton të suksesshëm me qeverinë e Kosovës në këtë fushë. It is my pleasure now to welcome His Excellency Greg Delawy, Ambassador of the United States of America to Kosovo. Ambassador Delawy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, Ministers, Ms. Rokosalvo, General Kowalczyk, it's wonderful to be here today with you all. It's particularly important for me to be here today with the UNDP and with the government of Kosovo, our two key partners here in the fight against radicalism. Our government across the globe is working to counter the rise of violent extremist movements through a focus on security, on cohesion, and on shared responsibility. To combat this global problem, it is essential that we all work closely together in a coordinated effort. I'm really pleased with the work that everyone involved in this report did in producing detailed analysis and recommendations on the push and pull factors influencing foreign fighters in Kosovo. This report adds some critical information and key insights to the public discourse on drivers influencing individuals to join foreign conflicts and engage in radical activities. In particular, this is the first direct study of foreign terrorist fighters in Kosovo and provides important baseline data about the fundamental causes that are motivating those individuals to join radical networks. Now, in order to be truly effective, we must prevent individuals from radicalizing, recruiting, or inspiring others to violence. This report helps us learn what motivates those individuals to leave their home country and fight in a foreign conflict, which should lead us toward designing better, more tailored programs, more effective programs to prevent and to intervene to stop radicalization. This report lays out not only the foundational reasons people are driven to join foreign conflicts, such as economic challenges or lack of state capacity, but also discusses how they travel to foreign conflicts and, most importantly, what happens when they return. Understanding the challenges that foreign fighters and Kosovo citizens face upon their return is also critical to helping the government address the reintegration efforts the Prime Minister spoke about a moment ago. Ensuring that individuals are given adequate resources and opportunities to reintegrate into society is central to building strong, resilient communities. This research shows that we need to continue the important work we are all doing to invest in youth, to invest in women, in local communities, and civil society. As this report details, violent extremists continue to spread their narratives, messages, and ideology to prey on disaffected young people without jobs or a sense of belonging. We must continue to invest in our youth to ensure that they remain resilient to all these pressures. We must also invest in our communities to provide them with the resources that they need to tackle radicalism. It is my sincere hope that the research presented here today will be used to inform policymakers here in Kosovo and improve government and donor programming. The information should serve as a platform for future rehabilitation and reintegration activities, and it will provide helpful insights as Kosovo implements its countering violent extremism and countering terrorism action plans. We're very proud to have worked with the government of Kosovo and the UNDP on this important initiative, and we certainly look forward to collaborating in the future on defeating the spread of violent extremism in Kosovo. So thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your address. We hope to continue our successful cooperation in the future as well. Alain Lapon, Project Manager of UNDP's Kosovo Safety and Security Project, will present some of the main findings of the report.
Thank you very much. So the title of the report is on the board, Understanding the Pull and Push Factors in Kosovo, or should we call it Motivating and Enabling Factors, primary interviews with returned foreign fighters and their families. Well, first of all, I would like to start with this, because the main finding of the researchers was, from the people interviewed, that the path we followed was not a positive one. Outline of the presentation. First of all, let me talk a little bit on the methodology, what to do the numbers tell. Then I will go into the push factors, we'll go into the pull factors, drivers addressing a woman, and a reintegration and stigma at the end. First of all, I think the research has already shown globally that there is no single pathway to radicalization and not one particular profile of a radicalized individual. So this was also being shown in the findings of this research, that it was not different. So socioeconomic challenges have created vulnerabilities affecting specific individuals and may have added to the process of radicalization. So, as said before, these violent extremism recruitment campaigns have very seriously played into these vulnerabilities. Then the same socialization processes and identity factors have a key role in charting the course for some to travel to Syria and Iraq to join violent extremist groups. So I will go a little bit more into depth on the pull and push factors in the future. But first, let me, in the rest of my presentation, let me address the methodology itself. So the methodology actually consisted out of 3 parts. First of all, we have the desk review to see what already was published and what we could find before. Then also the desk review has led actually to kind of hypotheses which were used in the fieldwork and used in the semi-structured interviews addressing the return foreign fighters and their families. So then there was a one-to-one primary interviews with Kosovars who have traveled to Syria and Iraq and are imprisoned on terrorist charges. The last one was actually the analysis and see what were the lessons learned out of that. As you can see on the left side of your slide, we have been able to interview 6 people serving prison sentences, 3 returned from Syria who were not facing indictment, 1 who was at that moment in the appeal process, and then 3 family members of returned foreign fighters. So there is more. Also, we used a life story methodology, but I think Alessandra explained this in the beginning of the speech. What do the figures say? Well, these data are from when the research started. I know there are some updated figures which were released by Kosovo Police lately. But we wanted to keep it with this data because the whole database structure has been based on this structure throughout the report. So 335 Kosovars traveled to Syria. Out of this, 253 were men, 55 were women, and 27 were children. So you see here the big difference between the last released figures was actually children born in the conflict areas, which were not here, and then people who attempted to leave, which were stopped at the border. So this is the danger, the difference between the figures released lately by the police and these figures actually. So the age group, which was actually mainly targeted, was between 18 and 20 years old. It brings Kosovo up 140 fighters per 1 million population. 40 individuals on top of that have been intercepted before traveling to Syria, and this is, I think, based on the risk profiles which were done together with border police and customs. And then at that moment, the database showed that 72% of them were unemployed. this data doesn't come back actually in the people we interviewed, because a lot of them had employment, but short-term employment just before they left. So there is a difference in the database of the 335 people. Maybe we had just the guys who had an employment before they left. So also you see actually the dissemination of the people who left on the map, and I think it's Kosovo-wide, although the places most under recruitment and where the most foreign fighters have been recruited is the border with the former Republic of Macedonia and then in Pristina. Also, while Pristina is the capital and has the most inhabitants, if you calculate it by 10,000 people, Pristina is not in the top 5. Next. When exactly did they leave and from which municipality did they leave? Well, you see this here on this map. So actually, leaving started in 2012. The major part left in 2013, followed by 2014, and then actually there was a huge reduction in 2015. There were probably 2 activities taking place in this period between 2014 and 15, and it was actually the intelligence-led operations by Kosovo police on the one hand, but also we should know that in 2014 actually the caliphate, ISIS declared their caliphate of the so-called Islamic State, declared the caliphate, and so it was half 2014. You see also actually in 2015 that most women left after 2015 and not in 2014, 2015 and not in 2012 and 2013. I think this has also to do with the target audiences which were selected for recruitment in certain periods of time. Because in the beginning they were not really recruiting females. Then also further data about 62, at that moment 62 men were reported killed in the conflict zone, and 123 Kosovars returned to Kosovo, of them 114 men and 6 women. Further, push and pull factors actually in blocks, and I will go also a little bit more in depth one by one, and then add some quotes to that, why these pull and push factors are actually on the board. First of all, something what came out was a lack of opportunities, no employment, etc., etc. Then the poor standards of education, and then also you will see that some of them were addressing critical thinking skills. And the problem of identity and the identity conundrum, feelings of alienation in some parts, mainly also in rural areas. Then access, discrimination and stigmatization, and it's rather stigmatization to what they think is the more fundamental way of practicing Islam. Then a disposition to violence. Some of them had some violence background. Active recruitment networks which were operational. Then access to the foreign fighters directly, which are already abroad by different means. Then charismatic influencers, dubious associations, then the knowledge of an Albanian speaker fighter unit in some of the conflict areas, which they could join as a feeling of group dynamics, empathy for victims, contextualized narratives, and romanticism of the conflict, and the last one, the communication channels. First of all, well, here, perceptions of limited opportunities and low quality education based on the quotes on the left side. So if things were good here, people would not leave. So I will not read all the quotes, but so you can see some of them. So it may have made Kosovars more vulnerable to propaganda of extremist groups, but no direct correlation between the poverty and the unemployment and radicalization has been shown in the report. Because some of the people who were interviewed said, we had a job. So we had a kind of a good life. Then here, alienation due to religious views, well, perception of Islamophobia, and I think this has also been addressed already by the Prime Minister. So it is an unreasonable hatred towards Islam, a tendency to see it as something foreign, to see Muslims as foreigners, etc., etc. So I think the main point what came out of that, it was rather a feeling of stigmatization against the fundamental way of Islam and some dress codes. Active recruitment network. Well, a well-developed and organized recruitment network seemed to have been active, and it shows throughout the report. I think some of the networks have been stopped in 2014-2015. So this was an issue between foreign fighters, the influencers, WS Association, and then link them up to the Albanian fighting unit in Syria and the local coordinators. So we will go further. There is another slide which shows the pathway how they came into the conflict. This one. First of all, so active recruitment network, so the process of making their way into Syria is for most of them the same, and it was actually based on these steps on the chart. So first of all, there was a process to travel to Syria. So if they wanted to travel to Syria, they connect to a coordinator. They receive a date of travel from a certain airport. It can be an airport in Pristina, it could be another one. So they fly in group or alone to Istanbul. So, or they hook up to somebody else in Istanbul. They get travel in group or alone to the Syrian border upon guidance. They cross border with chaperones. So they connect with the Albanian-speaking unit in Syria. They get trained and prepared. If they're not going into combat immediately, some of them went straight forward upon arrival in combat, and retreat and rest periodically, and then normally they return to Kosovo within 90 days because of the visa issue with Turkey. Otherwise they cannot cross the border. Then charismatic religious influencers, and I think here some of these networks have already been discussed, that some of the imams or the people which were the influencers have studied together abroad or had very tight connections. I think this has been documented also by media in some instances, like for example in the attack on the football match in Albania last year. So here you see some of the examples where people were preaching, were it illegal mosques or associations, and some of them have died in Syria. Then empathy for the victims. So some of them said, well, we have actually empathy for what we have seen on the internet, and seeing images online and putting my child or my kid in that context were the main reasons why I left. So some of them said also we went for humanitarian reasons. Then contextual-wise narratives, and I think it's also one strong element of the recruitment campaigns, that they try to make heroes out of certain people. Why? Well, it makes also a fearless fighter at the end. So Albanians are known to be among the strongest fighters in Syria. They come only second to Chechens, etc., etc. And then also that the original text of the declaration by the so-called Islamic State was also published in different languages, including Albanian. Romanticism of the conflict was the next step. So the notice of adventure of leaving home, traveling and fighting or supporting the fight, and a foreign fighter's mission to defend the people and a community so was a pull factor for young Kosovars to travel to Syria. So here you see some of the pictures published on YouTube and social media showing the group together. Religious frame, religion on the threat and identity. So most of the interview justifies their reasons for traveling to fight in Syria as largely moral and religious in character. Their religious frame appeared inherent to their identity and was paramount to interpreting different aspects of their lives, their actions, sense of purpose, and the very socialization process by which they claim to have been radicalized. So you see some quotes about that. So the first quote, they went to Syria to reach the status of Shahid in the name of Allah. So it's martyrdom for those. Then the next one, communication channels. Well, I think there's a lot been published on online radicalization. This report has actually shown that online radicalization was not that directly important, that it was an echo chamber, or that it gave support and access to radical narratives, but communication took place both in physical and virtual spaces. So there was a lot of face-to-face communication in recruiting some of these people going abroad. And then the drivers for women. Well, the drivers for women, according to what has been heard by the researchers and printed in this report, were not much different than the ones for males. So they have used the same messages to recruit these women, but also it says that women agency in deciding travel to Syria should not be denied. So not all of them followed their husband. So some of them decided themselves to go. Then reintegration. So this, as expected, a strong resentment for prison and arguments that prison is not a good resocialization tool. Many spoke about the ability to work and to take care about their families, which came back and or without social welfare of help. And then grappling with this stigma was something that was highlighted. I think this was also actually already shown in the last community assessment, and I think some of them picked this up, that some communities are afraid of them coming back into the society, and that reintegration and rehabilitation programs will have to target this, and they are aware about that. So first of all, I think they know they have to get back into their own families, their neighborhood, their municipality, and then further on. So they have to become part of a social life, and then have we further monitored how this will happen. I think there is a program ongoing, so I'm aware about this program, which is ongoing reintegration and rehabilitation, and it actually starts in prisons. So the link to the municipalities will be very important. At the end of my exposé here, so I would like to see there were some policy recommendations which came out of this report. And the first one is further to research the fully understanding of the penetration of other networks, their depth and dynamics. I think if you will read to the report, you will mainly come to one network. Were there more? Were there more networks than only one? So also the people who have been talking in this report came mainly from one region. And so you see that they mainly influenced by the same network. Was the network, or there more networks like that? So I would say this is rather a counter-terrorism initiative if you go into intelligence-led policing and research the networks. But still, research should be undertaken to better understand the radical ideology behind it. Not necessarily only the network, but what is exactly the radical ideology. And then the next one, as part of the CVE strategy, take measures to empower a woman and address specific vulnerabilities among them. So, if women were forced to go to Syria, why did this happen? Can we empower them more? That they have an agency to say no. Then the next one is developing of clear sentencing guidelines for judges and appropriate institutional standards. So this would, the proposal would be a further in-depth training for judges for implementation of the law on citizens going or leaving for foreign wars, and then a comparison with the criminal code. Then last one will be develop a clear communication strategy. And I think this is important. They should result in an all-government and multi-agency strategy approach towards violent extremism. It should also include the analysis of narratives at central, but also at local level, and the formation of alternative narratives or necessary counter-narratives. And it should also include crisis communication in case an incident would happen. I hope it doesn't, but we have been a witness of several of these incidents around the globe, everywhere in the world. Then investing in increasing employment opportunities and improving the employability of Kosovo workforce. As we have seen, the main targeted age group is between 18 and 28, and well, these are the people who have a young family and try to get to an income. Then targeted outreach of welfare services to the families of those imprisoned on terrorist charges, and also the returned foreign fighters. It should include clear guidelines developed by relevant institutions towards how this social welfare will be allocated and when. And then, I think this is the last one, yes. So a specific psychologically or psychosocial support program targeting foreign fighters and their families to improve resilience. So this should also not only address the foreign fighters in prisons, but also families and children who are supposed to come back. We know that a lot of women and children are still behind, and some of these children could have been indoctrinated at a young age or under influence of post-traumatic stress disorder and will have to be dealt with. So they have to be medical assistance provided to them. So this is the summary of the policy recommendations. I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Now we will take some comments and some questions related to the report. Alessandra and Alan are at your disposal.
I'm not that tall, so standing, sitting doesn't make a big difference for me.
Mikrofonin ju lutem, ajror, në rregull. Please introduce yourself. Prezentohuni, molim vas predstavite se. Whom do you represent and to whom are you addressing the question?
It's a unique chance.
Yes, you will have to wait for the report to come. For the...
Përshëndetje. Vedrejezën nga Instituti I Kosovës për shpëtimin ndërkombëtar.
Vetëm një moment. Vedre.
Përshëndetje Omer, vedrejezën nga Instituti I Kosovës për shpëtimin ndërkombëtar. Fillimisht vlerësojmë punën e vendisë, edhe pse ishin informacione kryesisht nga burimet të hapura dhe institucionet e Kosovës, por megjithatë kishim 8 persona të intervistuar, nga 355 sa 335 sa pretendojnë se ka marrë pjesë në këtë luftë. Ne mendojmë se është shumë e rëndësishme, ndoshta komunikimi me opinionin në lidhje me shifrat apo edhe arsyet e pjesëmarrjes në luftat të huaja, por duke pas parasysh se opinioni kosovar ka një inteligjencë mjaft të theksuar, besoj se duhet kemi një kujdes të veçantë tek prezantimi i numrave apo i personave të vrarë atje. Për shembull, edhe pse ishin të dhëna nga Policia e Kosovës, ne kemi pas dëshirë të dimë se në çfarë mekanizmi apo çfarë metodë është përdorur për matjen apo për numrin e të vrarë atje në Siris, që thuhet se është numri 55. Dhe dyta, sa do të jetë e mundshme kulumtimi edhe në Turqeshëm, kur kemi edhe rreth 325 aso po mbetet 327 personë të tjerë për të intervistuar.
Well, on the first question, data, which is used as official data from Kosovo police, so I cannot answer you on this. We got official data from police, what they have reported as people died in conflict.
On the second question, yeah, I would like to continue this. It's extremely time consuming. So, I mean, you take the 13 interviews, all in all, have taken 3 months to arrange. Yeah. The researcher who did this, his name is Behar Jara. He's coming here mid-December. We're going to do a brown bag roundtable. You can come to this. Yes, if you want to do interviews that going sort of 100, you will need more than a year. I think it's not worth it. But, you know, again, self-selected, so maybe if we select the target group differently, we can repeat this and cut down the time to 6 months. It's still too long. Normally, in UNDP, we don't take more than 3 months to publish a report. So this is triple the time it usually takes us, triple the time of my people that they don't do anything else. It's a pure measure of how much capacity I have. But yes, I would like to do it if there is interest from the institutions, because it's also a matter of Kosovo police and corrections. And short answer, yes, we would like to do it. We only have that one, right? Okay.
Hi, Yolanda Domi-Dika. If I understood correctly, one of the interesting facts that I heard from Alan's presentation was that they went on trips for 90 days because of their visa limitations. So did they go more than one trip, like the same person? And how is that possible without being noticed by maybe border police or intelligence or policing?
Well, this is one of the quotes that they went for 90 days because of this visa. This is probably the ones who want to return at the end. Okay, there are others who stay behind. You know, so not all of them come forward and backward. Some of them initially said, okay, we want to plan a life here and we will stay here, and didn't really bother about the 90 days. This is what I said, depending on risk profiles at borders, but some citizens didn't leave necessarily directly from Pristina airport. You can travel somewhere else and fly to Istanbul or to, so it's very hard if they not have already been spotted or being put under surveillance. So it's very hard to ban somebody to leave to another place to visit your brother, for example, or set another place in the world. Okay?
More?
Thank you.
No comment più c'è, comment. Allow me to give the floor to Alessandra again for some closing remarks.
Okay, thank you all very, very much for coming, for the patience. I know it was hot. Thank you also for the questions. We had actually prepared ourselves with our communication office in New York for days and days for very difficult questions, but good. I mean, we got a media training. I wanted to inform you of two events. So on the 6th of December, we will have a roundtable on Kosovo's progress on countering violent extremism in Brussels, together with the colleagues from the European Union. I see Visa sitting over there. Minister of Internal Affairs, Flamor Sefa, is coming. We're very happy to host this. We will send invites here to all the diplomatic missions and the NATO and everybody, so you can forward them. We already did this. So we know 6th of December in Brussels is probably not a great day to attract a large crowd, but this is the first time we're doing something jointly together, because we think that amongst the Western Balkans we really stick out in terms of progress, so we should share this. And the second thing I wanted to say, again, we're going to do a brown bag, we will send it out, but this is more on the technicalities, how to do research, what's the methodology, and a little bit to answer the question that the colleague asked. This will be on 12th or 13th, I do not know exactly, but this will be with the researchers, so you can actually ask how long it took to do confidence building measures, how long they had to go there, how often, might be of interest for some of you. So I want to thank you again for the patience of sitting here right until the end. I know it's afternoon. Thank you very, very much. And if you have any other questions, as usual with UNDP, you can just forward them to us. Report, pick them up next week in our office. Call for beforehand if it's already there. Yeah, take a go.